What if the person you trusted most, your best friend, orchestrated your downfall and framed you for a crime you never committed? For a decade, that was my terrifying reality. This isn't just a story about false accusations. It's the raw, painstaking account of how I fought to reclaim my life from the lies of a supposed friend. Before we continue, if you love our stories, do well to encourage us by hitting the like button, share and subscribe for more. My name is Zander Northfield. I'm 34 years old, a former software architect, and the co-founder of what became a billion-dollar tech giant. And on the day I was supposed to become a millionaire, my brother stole my life. It started with a toast. Tristan, Gault, and I stood on the roof of the Horizon Tech building. The wind whipped at our ties. We were drinking cheap champagne out of plastic cups, celebrating. Our company was going public the next morning. "We did it, Zander," Tristan said, clinking his cup against mine. "From a garage to this." I looked at him, feeling a lump in my throat. We had been best friends since kindergarten. "I couldn't have done this without you, T," I said honestly. "You're the voice. I'm just the code." Tristan smiled, but for a second his eyes looked cold, like a shark staring at bait. "I know, Zander," he whispered. "I know." I brushed it off as nerves. I didn't know it was a warning. The next morning, the morning of the IPO, I didn't wake up to stock tickers or congratulations. I woke up to the sound of wood splintering. My front door exploded inward. Before I could even sit up, men in tactical gear were screaming at me to get on the ground. "Police!" Hands where I can see them. I was dragged out of bed in my pajamas, my face pressed against the cold hardwood floor. Chaos erupted around me. Drawers were dumped out. Mattresses flipped. Detective Dunham walked in. He looked tired, like he had seen it all before. He didn't even look at me. He walked straight to the air vent near the ceiling of my closet. He stood on a chair, unscrewed the grate, and pulled out a black, taped-up hard case that had been shoved deep into the ductwork. "Jackpot," Dunham muttered. "That's not mine," I screamed, struggling against the cuffs. "I've never opened that vent in my life." They cracked the case open right there. Inside were stacks of cash and 3 black hard drives. I stared in horror. The realization hit me cold. Tristan was the only other person in the world who had a spare key to my apartment. Outside, I could hear the chop of news helicopters. They were filming my perp walk. They threw me into a cold metal room. Detective Dunham sat across from me, tossing a file on the table. He played bad cop perfectly. "We know everything, Zander," Dunham said. "We found the emails. You were selling user data to the black market, using your own admin codes." "I never sold anything," I yelled. "Check the IP addresses." "It wasn't me." "The IP matches your home router," he shot back. "And the offshore accounts are in your name." My head was spinning. I needed help. I needed Tristan. "Let me call my partner," I begged. "Tristan will tell you. He knows I wouldn't do this." When I finally got Tristan on the phone, I expected anger on my behalf. Instead, his voice cracked with fake tears. "Zander," he sobbed. "How could you? The board, they showed me the logs. Why did you steal from us?" "Tristan, stop acting," I shouted. "You know me." "I thought I did," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Don't call me again." The line went dead. That was the moment I knew. The hidden case, the IP address, the timing, it wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. I made bail 3 days later. My bank accounts were frozen, but my parents put up their house to get me out. I was naive. I thought I could still fix this. I thought if I just looked Tristan in the eye, he would snap out of it. I went straight to the Horizon Tech offices. I swiped my badge at the turnstile. Red light. Access denied. The security guard, a guy I used to buy coffee for, stepped in front of me. "Sir, you need to leave." "I own this company," I shouted. Then the elevator doors opened. Tristan walked out. He wasn't alone. He was flanked by 3 corporate lawyers. He didn't look like a friend. He looked like a CEO protecting an asset. He stopped 5 feet away and handed me a thick envelope. "Termination notice," Tristan said flatly, "and a lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty." "Tristan, look at me," I pleaded. He turned to the lobby full of watching employees. "We are deeply saddened by Mr. Northfield's betrayal," he announced loudly. "Horizon Tech is removing this rogue element to protect our shareholders." He didn't even blink. He sacrificed me to save the stock price. My lawyer, a public defender named Mr. Klein, looked exhausted. He laid photos of the evidence on his desk. The stolen data, the bank transfers, the hard drives found in the vent. Zander, listen to me, Klein said. This looks bad. It looks airtight. But I didn't do it. It doesn't matter, he said. If we go to trial, the jury will see the money in your apartment and the codes on your computer. You're looking at 20 years in federal prison. Minimum. I felt like I couldn't breathe. 20 years. My life would be over. Or, Klein continued, sliding a paper forward. You take the deal. No contest. You get 10 years of strict probation, home confinement for the first 2 years, and you pay restitution, basically everything you own. Plus, a lifetime ban from corporate officer positions. I have to admit to a lie. I asked, tears stinging my eyes. You have to survive, Klein said. I signed the paper. I walked out of that office a free man, but Zander Northfield, the architect, the dreamer, was dead. Tristan had killed him. Now, I was just a felon with nothing left but a burning need for the truth. My life didn't just fall apart, it dissolved. 2 weeks after the plea deal, my fiancée, the woman I was supposed to marry in June, packed her bags. She couldn't look me in the eye. I can't do this, Zander, she cried, standing by the door. I can't be with someone the whole world thinks is a thief. My parents, the shame is too much. I didn't fight for her. I had nothing to offer. The restitution payments drained every cent I had saved. The bank foreclosed on my apartment. Within a month, I went from a penthouse view to a damp basement apartment in a neighborhood where sirens were the background music. I needed money to eat, but no tech company would touch me. My name was poison. I finally found a job as a night janitor at a local community college. It was humiliating. I spent my nights mopping floors in computer labs where students were using the open-source frameworks I helped pioneer. I wore a hat low over my eyes, terrified someone would recognize me. I was a ghost. For the first year, I just tried to survive the depression. I slept, I worked, and I hated Tristan Gault with every fiber of my being. By year 3, the sadness turned into something useful, cold, hard rage. I stopped pitying myself and started analyzing. I turned the peeling walls of my basement into a war room. I taped up newspaper clippings of Tristan's success, his new yachts, his Entrepreneur of the Year awards. I looked at the timeline of the crime. The frame-up was too complex for an outsider. It required physical access to my terminal and the admin passwords. Only one other person had those. Tristan. But knowing it and proving it were two different things. I was a software architect, not a forensic investigator. So, I used my employee discount at the college. After my janitorial shift ended at 4 a.m., I didn't go home. I sat in the library and read every book on digital forensics, data recovery, and cyber law. I wasn't building code anymore. I was learning how to hunt. I studied how deleted files linger in server shadows. I learned about metadata footprints. I spent 3 years just sharpening my mind, waiting for the right moment to strike. I was playing the long game. Year 6 arrived, and I began my investigation. I couldn't get near Tristan. He had private security that cost more than my lifetime earnings, so I looked for the people he had left behind. I tracked the employment history of everyone who worked at Horizon Tech during the IPO. I noticed a disturbing pattern. The entire finance team from that year had been fired or restructured within months of my arrest. Tristan was cleaning house. One name stood out, Sasha Reed. She was a junior accountant back then. Her signature was on the documents that authorized the transfer to the offshore accounts. Finding her was difficult. She had changed her name legally and moved 3 towns over. But I dug through public records until I found a bridal registry for a wedding that had been canceled months after my trial. The registry listed her new address for return gifts. That was the breadcrumb I needed. She wasn't in finance anymore. She was working at a diner, living a quiet, invisible life. I sat in a booth at Dino's Diner for 3 nights in a row before I built up the courage to speak. Sasha looked tired. The bright, ambitious girl I remembered was gone. When she finally poured my coffee, I looked up. "Hello, Sasha," I said quietly. She dropped the pot. Coffee splashed everywhere. She recognized me instantly. Her face went pale, and she whispered, "Please just leave. I can't talk to you." "I didn't do it, Sasha," I said, ignoring the mess. "And I know you didn't knowingly sign those papers." She started shaking. I waited for her shift to end. We stood in the alley behind the diner. She was crying. "He made me," she confessed, her voice trembling. "Tristan came to me the night before the raid. He said if I didn't verify the transfers, he'd ruin my family. He had photos, personal photos. I was 22, Zander. I was scared. I'm not mad at you, I told her. But I need your help. We can stop him. It took weeks of convincing, but she finally agreed. She became my eyes and ears. We were a team now. Year 9. The turning point came from the source I least expected, Tristan's own ego. He was untouchable now, a billionaire tech mogul. He loved the spotlight too much. I was watching a live stream interview on my cracked phone. Tristan was sitting in his mansion, bragging to a tech journalist about his genius coding skills. People think I'm just the face, Tristan said, swirling a glass of whiskey. But I built the entire Cayman server architecture myself. I spent a whole weekend in the server room, just me locked in, coding the backbone. I froze. I rewound the video. What weekend was that? The interviewer asked. Oh, it was the first weekend of May 10 years ago, Tristan boasted. My heart hammered against my ribs. The first weekend of May. That was the weekend before the IPO. That was the exact time frame the police said the files were planted on my drive. The prosecution had argued I hacked it remotely, but the logs clearly showed physical console access. Tristan had just admitted on camera that he was the only one in the server room when the crime was committed. He had just placed himself at the scene of the crime. Before I tell you how I used Tristan's own ego to set the perfect digital trap and execute the most dangerous phase of my plan, I have to ask, if you have come with us this far, it means you are really invested in Zander's journey. Please do well to like this video, share it with friends who love satisfying underdog stories, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a part. Also, tell us in the comments where you are listening from. We love seeing our global community. Thank you. Sasha and I sat in my cramped basement, staring at a laptop screen. The air was thick with tension. We had a plan, but it was dangerous. I couldn't hack into Horizon Tech's servers to get the proof. One keystroke like that would violate my probation and send me to prison for real. We can't break in, I told Sasha, rubbing my eyes. We have to make him open the door for us. We decided to play on Tristan's greatest weakness, his paranoia. If he thought someone else knew his secret, he would panic. He would check his tracks. And that is exactly what we needed. I created an anonymous email account. I attached a small, blurry screenshot of the server log Sasha had saved years ago, the one that showed Tristan's admin ID modifying the files. It wasn't enough to convict him, but it was enough to scare him. I typed a simple subject line. I found what you buried. My finger hovered over the enter key. If we do this, there is no going back, Sasha warned. He will come for us. Let him come, I said. I hit send. The bait was in the water. Now, we just had to wait for the shark to bite. We didn't have to wait long. Sasha had set up a digital tripwire on the old, dormant cloud account Tristan used for his personal backups back in the startup days. We knew that if he got scared, that is the first place he would check to make sure his insurance files were still hidden. For 3 hours, nothing happened. I paced the small room, sweating. Had he ignored it? Did he trace the IP? Then, a loud ping echoed from the laptop. A red light flashed on the screen. He's logging in. Sasha gasped, typing furiously. He's accessing the secure vault. I couldn't see his face, but the digital footprint told me everything. The cursor on the screen jittered. He was opening folders and closing them in seconds. He was rattled. Tristan was a narcissist. He hadn't destroyed the evidence because he kept the logs as a trophy of how he outsmarted me. Now that arrogance was his downfall. He was confirming that he knew exactly where the bodies were buried. The data poured in. Sasha's tracking program worked perfectly. Got him, she whispered, her eyes wide. Look at the user ID. The login wasn't just coming from Tristan's IP. It was using a specific, hard-coded user profile ID. admin_ghost_01. The exact same hidden profile used to create the fraudulent files 10 years ago. He was too lazy to change it, or too arrogant to think anyone would ever see it again. I stared at the screen, feeling a rush of adrenaline. This is it, I said. This proves he had the files. It's strong, Sasha said, pulling back. But Zander, it's circumstantial. A good lawyer could argue that he was just checking old company files. We can prove he has the files, but we can't prove he planted them with malicious intent. Not yet. She was right. In a court of law, Tristan could spin this. We needed more than data. We needed a reaction so visceral, so undeniable, that no lawyer could talk him out of it. We needed to look him in the eye. I took everything, the video of his interview, the server logs, and the new tracking data, to the one man I hoped still had a conscience. Detective Dunham was still on the force, but just barely. He had been pushed out to a desk job in the cold case basement, counting the days until his pension. When he saw me walking into his cramped office, he stiffened. "I have nothing to say to you, Northfield," he grunted. "I don't want you to talk," I said, placing a tablet on his desk. "I want you to look." I played the video of Tristan admitting he was in the server room. Then I showed him the fresh logs. Dunham watched in silence. I saw his jaw tighten. He was a good cop who had been tricked, and he hated being played. "I always hated that the evidence was so convenient," Dunham admitted quietly, looking at the screen. "It felt staged. But my captain pushed it through." He stood up, grabbing his badge. "I can't arrest him on this alone. But with this, I can get a warrant for a wire." The Man of the Year Gala was the biggest event in the city. Tickets cost $5,000. I didn't have $5,000. I went to my mother's backyard and dug up the coffee can where I'd buried my father's vintage watch the day before the raid. It was the only asset the feds hadn't seized. I pawned it to buy a single ticket. I rented a cheap tuxedo that didn't fit quite right. I kept my head down as I entered the ballroom, bypassing the red carpet and the cameras. I blended into the shadows of the crowd, just another faceless guest. I entered the main floor. It was a sea of diamonds and champagne. In the center of it all was Tristan, holding court, laughing, soaking in the adoration. He looked like a king. I waited until there was a lull in the conversation. I walked right up to him. The circle of people parted. Tristan's smile faltered when he saw me. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. I extended my hand. He hesitated, then took it, playing along for the onlookers. I leaned in close, so only he could hear. "I know about the Cayman server, Tristan," I whispered. "And I have the keys." I felt his hand go clammy. The color drained from his face instantly. He looked terrified. I smiled, let go of his hand, and walked away, leaving him trembling. The trap was set. The reaction was immediate. Before I had even left the gala, Tristan was running. He didn't run physically, he ran digitally. He left the event through a side door, ignoring the paparazzi, and jumped into his limousine. Back in the basement, Sasha and I watched our screens light up. It was like watching a city on fire from space. Tristan was moving massive amounts of data. He was accessing the shell companies, trying to purge the logs, and transferring funds to accounts that didn't have his name on them. "He's panicking," Sasha said, typing rapidly to capture every keystroke. "He's trying to burn the evidence, but he's moving too fast. He's making mistakes." In his desperation to hide his tracks, Tristan was actually highlighting them. Every file he tried to delete left a digital scar. He was practically drawing a map for the forensic team. He wasn't acting like an innocent CEO. He was acting like a fugitive. My phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I picked it up, my hand shaking slightly. "Meet me," Tristan's voice hissed. He sounded breathless. "The old office. Midnight. Come alone, or I burn everything." I looked at Sasha. She nodded. We had him exactly where we wanted him. The old Horizon Tech building was a skeleton of its former self. It was slated for demolition next month. The windows were boarded up, and the lobby smelled like dust and decay. It was fitting. This was where our friendship started, and this was where it would end. I wasn't alone, though. Under my jacket, taped to my chest, was a high-fidelity wire provided by Dunham, authorized by a fresh warrant. Outside, in an unmarked van, Dunham and a tactical team were listening to every breath. I walked up the stairs to the 4th floor. The glass walls of our old office were cracked. Tristan was standing by the window, looking out at the city skyline he thought he owned. He looked disheveled. His tie was undone, and he was sweating. He hadn't brought his security detail. He couldn't. He didn't want any witnesses for the crime he was about to commit. "You have a lot of nerve showing up here," Tristan said, turning around. He held a tablet in his hand, his finger hovering over a delete button. "You invited me, Tristan," I said calmly. "You look tired." "Stop the games, Zander," he snapped. "How much? How much do you want to hand over the drive and disappear for good?" I stepped closer. "This isn't about money. It's always about money." Tristan screamed, his voice echoing off the empty walls. He slammed the tablet onto a dusty desk. "Why did you do it, Tristan?" I asked. I needed him to say it. "We were brothers. We were going to be rich together." Tristan laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. "Brothers? No, Zander. You were the anchor. You were too soft. You wanted to play by the rules. You wanted to be ethical. Do you have any idea how much money we would have lost if I let you run things?" He walked toward me, his eyes wild. "I had to cut you loose. It was a business decision. I framed you because it was the cleanest way to get your shares back. I did what had to be done to build this empire. He pulled a checkbook out of his jacket. He scribbled furiously and ripped out a check. He shoved it into my chest. $20 million, he spat. Take it. Sign an NDA. Go live on an island and rot. Just give me the drive. I looked down at the check. It was more money than I could spend in a lifetime. It was the price of my soul. I took the check in my hand. Tristan smirked, thinking he had won again. Thinking that everyone had a price. I looked him dead in the eye. You still don't get it, I said. I don't want your money. I want my name. I tore the check in half. Then I tore it again, letting the pieces fall to the dirty floor like confetti. Tristan's face contorted in rage. He lunged at me, but before he could touch me, the door burst open. Police! Don't move. Detective Dunham led the charge, his gun drawn. Tristan Gault, you are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and perjury. Tristan froze. He looked at me, then at the cops, then back at me. The realization hit him. The wire. The setup. The confession. It was all recorded. You set me up, he screamed as they slammed him against the desk and clicked the handcuffs onto his wrists. I just waited, Tristan, I said quietly as they dragged him away. I just waited for you to be yourself. 5 months later. The courthouse steps were crowded, but for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't hiding my face. The sun felt warm. Tristan Gault had been sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His assets were frozen, and Horizon Tech was under new, ethical management. But the most important ruling had just been read by the judge. Zander Northfield? Exonerated. All charges vacated. Record expunged. I walked down the steps, a free man. Sasha was waiting for me at the bottom, smiling. Detective Dunham gave me a nod from his car before driving away. The reporters were shouting questions. Zander, will you return to Tech? Zander, how does it feel? I stopped for a moment and looked back at the courthouse. I thought about the decade I lost. The pain, the poverty, the loneliness. I couldn't get those years back. But I had my dignity. I had the truth. What now? Sasha asked as I reached her. I took a deep breath, tasting the fresh air. I looked at the empty lot where the old Horizon building once stood. I was an architect without a blueprint, but for the first time in 10 years, the design was entirely up to me. Now, I said, smiling for the first time in a long time, I start living.
This story isn't just about a corporate betrayal or a clever digital trap. It is a powerful reminder that the truth acts like a seed. You can bury it for years, but eventually, it will grow towards the light. Tristan believed that he could delete his past and buy his future, thinking that power and money made him untouchable. He mistook Zander's silence for defeat. The lesson: never underestimate the power of patience and integrity. When you are wronged, the immediate instinct is to lash out or give up. But Zander showed us that sometimes the best way to fight a loud lie is with quiet, meticulous work. Success built on the back of betrayal is a house of cards. It only takes one breath of truth to knock it down. Build your life on honest ground, and no one can take it from you. Thank you so much for following Zander's incredible journey from a framed outcast to the architect of his own vindication. It was an emotional ride of justice served cold, and we hope you felt every moment of his triumph. If you enjoyed this story and love hearing about underdogs who prove the giants wrong, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Tell us in the comments, do you think Zander should have taken the $20 million and walked away? Or was clearing his name worth more than the money? Type Team Integrity if you think he made the right choice. See you in the next story.